afternoon, everyone. It is so good to be on here today speaking with the group. I hope everyone is off to a great start on your Saturday morning. Being a part of this is truly a commitment, and I'm so grateful to have an audience to speak to on today. So, as Tracy stated, my name is Tori Black, and I am a native Memphian, and I am a lupus survivor. So I have a corny sense of humor. So as I was preparing to speak to the group today, I thought about one of my favorite storytellers of all time, and it is Sophia Petrillo from The Golden Girls. And I've always wanted to start a story out by saying, picture it, Memphis, 2006. I'm going to share a picture of my life, a glimpse of my life, of what was going on during that time and how I was diagnosed with lupus, what my symptoms were, and how it impacted my life as a young woman in my late 20s. So, 2006, I was what I considered to be healthy. I ate fairly healthy. I wasn't like a health nut or anything, but I thought I was a healthy person. I exercised a little bit. And what I would do after I worked every day, I would go home, change clothes, and go out and just run, because running was always like a release for me, especially after work. And so I would go to work, go home, run for about an hour, go home, eat my dinner. I've always loved baked food, baked fish, baked chicken. Never been a big person on frying food because my parents didn't fry a whole lot. So I considered myself to be somewhat healthy. So at the age of 29 in 2006, I started to notice some symptoms that were kind of uncommon for me. But considering that I considered myself to be an online physician at the time, anytime I had a symptom, I just kind of diagnosed myself. So I remember on Valentine's Day, I noticed I had a rash right here on my arm. And I was like, well, I had seafood for lunch and seafood for dinner. So maybe this is a seafood allergy. And it wouldn't go away. So after a day or so, I went to the emergency room and I told the physicians that I'd eaten some seafood and it was probably a seafood allergy. The sad part about it, they listened to me and they gave me like some hydrocortisone and put it on, and the rash went away. A month or so later, I had another rash to appear. And this one didn't go away as quickly, but I didn't really respond to it much because I was having some other symptoms that became a little bit more obvious and apparent. And I had inflammation. Now, you can't really see my full body, but I've always been a small frame, no more than 120 pounds, 5 feet. But my feet started to swell and my knees started to swell. And it was to the point that one day my aunt was looking at me and she said, you really should go and get that checked out because that's not normal. And I said, well, I probably have arthritis because my grandmother had arthritis. Both maternal and paternal grandmothers suffered from arthritis. And then I remembered, when I was in high school, I was a cheerleader and my knees would kind of bother me a little bit back then. And so I just figured I had an early onset of arthritis. So remember, I told you I was an online medical doctor. So anytime I had a symptom, I could pretty much tell you what it was. But my aunt was very concerned about the inflammation. And so I went to see my primary care physician and he looked at my knees and my feet and he said, no, that's not a normal swelling. You want to go see a rheumatologist. And so he recommended that I go see one right away. But of course, I did not go immediately to visit a rheumatologist. But I started having some other symptoms. And along the way, I was not connecting the symptoms to each other. So remember, I had a rash that occurred. And then months prior to, earlier in the 2005 year, I was having some joint problems. And I remember being at a friend's house and I could barely walk up the stairs. So I had the joint problems. I had joint problems from high school. And then I had a rash that came up. And now I'm having this inflammation. The inflammation really didn't bother me. It was just unattractive. but I didn't have any pain or anything related to it. And so I guess that's why I didn't go to the rheumatologist right away. But shortly after, I visited the primary care physician and he told me to go and see the rheumatologist. It seemed like all of these other symptoms just start to surface. And I remember being so exhausted. I had just enough energy to get up and go to work and go home. And then it got to the point where I had the energy to get up and go to work and could barely get out of my car. And when I would walk across the parking lot to my building, I would have to go in my office and close the door and lay my head down on my desk and eat a bowl of oatmeal. And it took about an hour for me to recharge myself. Now, remember, I'm 29 years old. What 29-year-old has these types of symptoms going on in their body? A 29-year-old that has lupus that has been undiagnosed and has gone undiagnosed for quite some time. So I spent about 3 or 4 months on this job. And I just remember every morning going in and battling, trying to get through the day. And I couldn't make it through a day. That was a period of about 3 months. And so I went to the emergency room maybe 3 or 4 times during this period. Nothing ever occurred to me to go and see that rheumatologist that my primary care physician recommended for me. So it seemed like this was going on for an extended period of time, but it was over a matter of 3 to 4 months that I went from running around the block every day to barely walking across the parking lot. So on my 4th visit to the emergency room in April of 2006, they decided to keep me. So apparently I ran into a physician in the emergency room that had a little bit more medical knowledge than I had from my internet knowledge. And he said that there's something going on with you and we really need to get it checked out. Now, let me go back. I did skip a step. In between all of those emergency room visits, I did finally go and see a rheumatologist. And one of my closest friends' mom suffered from lupus, and she had a rheumatologist, and she was the only person that I knew who had a rheumatologist. And so she recommended that I go and visit Dr. Ramesh Gupta in Memphis. And so I went to see Dr. Gupta, and he looked at me and he saw the inflammation, and he told me that he wanted to test me for rheumatoid arthritis and for lupus because the symptoms are so similar. And I was like, lupus? Why would you test me for lupus? I don't have lupus. And he said, well, the symptoms are similar, the inflammation, and many people are misdiagnosed with an arthritis diagnosis when they really have lupus. So this was in between the time that I was going to the emergency room and having all of these flare-ups. And so in April of 2006, I went to the emergency room for the last time, and they kept me for about a week, and they ran every test you could imagine, every test under the sun, from HIV to Lyme disease, you name it, they tested me. And one night I was in my room and this nurse came in. And of course, I don't remember her name, but I just remember she was an older white lady with pretty long gray hair. And she was one of the night nurses, and she was rubbing my hair, and she was standing over my head, and she was talking to me, and she said, so what's going on with you? And with the little energy that I had left in me, I said, I have no idea. And she said, well, how do you feel? And I said, I feel horrible because I couldn't eat. I had gone from 120 pounds to about 90 pounds. And for the average person who wants to lose weight, 30 pounds would be great. But for a person who was already small and who was sick and had no appetite for 2 months straight, that wasn't a good place to be in. I went from wearing a woman size 4 to a little girl size 14. And so I was in the hospital and I told her I couldn't eat. I was hurting all over, but more than anything, I suffered from exhaustion. And I barely had the energy to get up and walk to the bathroom each day. And so she asked me, had I been tested for lupus? And I said, yes. my rheumatologist tested me about a month or so ago, but I've been so sick, I haven't had an opportunity to go back in to get my results. And she said, "You have lupus." She said she could see the butterfly rash forming on my face as she looked at me when I laid in that hospital bed. And she brought me a mirror and she showed it to me. And she said, "This is called a butterfly rash. It's in the shape of a butterfly, and that's one of the symptoms of lupus." Of course, I did not have a mirror on hand to look at myself, because when you're in a hospital, the last thing you're worried about is the physical appearance. And she said, "What you need to do is," she said she was going to talk to the on-call physician because it was the weekend, and she was going to let them know that they needed to run a test for lupus. And I told her that the physician had already tested me. I just didn't have the results. When the doctor came in the next day, I told him to contact my physician, Dr. Gupta, because he had tested me. They called Dr. Gupta and he said, yes, she tested positive, and I was waiting for her to come back into the office. She had an appointment scheduled, I think, like for the next week or so. And he said, let her go, send her to me, and I'll take care of her. When I got out of the hospital and went home and I was putting on clothes, when I looked at my body for the first time, because I was in hospital rags for over 2 weeks, I had a rash that had spread over my entire body. My chest, my arms, my legs, my stomach, my face. I looked like a totally different person. I almost didn't recognize myself. And so I went to see Dr. Gupta, and I was so sick. I could not work. I could barely eat, and I could barely walk. I only had the strength to get out of the bed and get in the car for someone to take me to the doctor. I had appointments on a weekly basis with Dr. Gupta until he built me back up to a point where I could somewhat manage. But this went on for about a year. I was bedridden for about 8 months before I could finally get up. I didn't have an appetite. I'd lost my sense of taste. I didn't want anything to eat. And later on, I found out that my mom was putting like vitamins and supplements in the food that I was eating, trying to build my immune system back up and build my strength back up, because I was at a point where I didn't think I could do anything. And so I even filed for unemployment and for the benefits. I applied for food stamps. I applied for Social Security, disability, and unemployment. And I was approved for the unemployment. I was denied benefits, the disability benefits. And I was very upset when I didn't receive my disability benefits. But you know what? That was probably life-saving for me, because had I been placed on disability at the age of 29, I would probably have allowed myself to remain on disability to the age of 44, where I am today. So because I was not approved for disability benefits, I knew I had to get back to work. And so I made sure that I began to put myself first and try to get better and try to build my strength. And the first thing I did to get myself better was to learn to say no to other people. I realized that I was the person in my family that everybody came to for everything, because they knew, number one, I could get it done. And they knew, number two, that I would get it done. I did everything from planning family events, family vacations, family outings, celebrations, graduation parties, birthday parties. I did it all. I took care of other people's children. I wasn't married. I didn't have my own children. So I was available. I was young and I could do it all. Yeah, I could do it all. But I had to get to a point to where I had to start saying no. When I started saying no and putting myself first, going to bed, getting the proper rest, I started to feel a difference in myself. And so after about a year of taking care of myself, and really it was my mom and my aunt who took care of me because I couldn't do anything. After a year, I went back to work to a different job. And as far as a career was concerned, I basically had to start all the way over from scratch just to get in a position because I was too qualified for some jobs and not qualified enough for where I was trying to get before I became sick. So after a year, I went back to work and my life was starting to get a little normal again. Not very normal, but what my new normal was. New normal for me was going to work, going home, and going to bed and trying to do this all over again. This was my routine. There was no more partying, going to get my hair done on Thursday, going to the club Thursday night, hanging out Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Nah. And it wasn't that I just couldn't physically do it, but I was in a different place mentally because for anyone on here that has been sick, you know that your mindset changes when life changes because you start to prioritize different things. And what was important for me then wasn't important now. Yeah, it was okay to hang out a little bit, but I knew that my health was my priority and being with my family was my priority because that's who carried me through. So after a few years of working and trying to get back to a normal routine, I wanted to do a little bit more physically because I felt like I'm not doing anything and I'm used to exercising and working out, but I didn't have the strength nor the energy to go back out and run 3 miles again. So I started walking and I promised myself that I would do as much as I could and then go home. I was not pushing myself and I was not competing with anybody else. And I started out walking 2 times a week, 15 minutes at a time. And I was like, I can do this. I'm great. I can walk again. And then I increased it to 30 minutes. And I started walking every day for 30 minutes, 5 times a week. That's what the American Heart Association recommends, 30 minutes of exercise. And so, hey, I am back to health now because I can exercise for 30 minutes a day now, even if it is walking. I'm not comparing myself or my progress to anybody but me. And that's what I did. And then one day I said, you know what? Let me try to jog. And I went out there and I started jogging and I did it. And I went from walking again to jogging to running. And that was in 2010. It took me 4 years to muster up the energy to do anything. Fast forward to 2015, maybe, I decided that I wanted to start working out again. I went to see to a personal trainer who I was actually working with before I became sick. And he put me on a very strict nutrition plan and a workout plan. And I was thinking to myself, why would I do this to myself? So I went in, and as you know, when you take steroids, your weight can kind of fluctuate a little bit, but I didn't stay on steroids that long, but I didn't have the definition that I wanted. And then I wanted to make sure that I just stayed active and I was doing something to keep me occupied. So I went in to lose 15 pounds because I was getting ready for my birthday and I wanted to be fit and I wanted to be able to put on my bikini and show this slim physique. And I go to the gym and I start working out and I'm just feeling pumped and feeling good every day. And I'm noticing the difference in my body and I'm looking good, but I'm not noticing how well I'm feeling all the time. It never, I didn't connect the two. And then one day I was like, I feel great. Every morning I wake up and I look forward to going to the gym. And I became so much of a fit fanatic that my routine was to work out in the mornings before work. Prior to this, I was the person that had to be drugged out of the bed just to go brush my teeth and comb my hair before I could go to work. And now I'm this person that is energized every morning and I go work out and I go to work and I have a great day and I go home and I get ready to do it again every single day. 3 months into this routine with my trainer, I am, I've removed sugar from my diet. I'm eating lean meats, green vegetables with every meal, my healthy carbs, and I'm just doing great, increasing my water intake. I go to do my 90-day check-in with my trainer, and I've lost 15 pounds just like that. And I was thinking, wow, how did I do this? This is amazing. Now, at the same time, it's my quarterly check-in with Dr. Gupta, my physician, my rheumatologist. And when I went in to see him, and anybody who's been to visit Dr. Gupta, that he's not one for many words. And so he's looking over my profile. I've done my blood work, and he says, "Oh, you've been doing something different?" And I said, "Yeah, Dr. Gupta, I've been working out. Can't you see? I'm toned up a little bit. I've lost about 15 pounds, eating better, drinking more water." And he said, "Well, whatever you're doing, keep doing it because your lupus is in remission." And when he said that, my mouth just dropped. I said, "It's what?" And he said, "Your lupus is in remission." I didn't know lupus could go into remission. I was thinking this was something I would have to manage for the rest of my life, and I would have to take my medication for the rest of my life. And he said, "Your dieting and the exercising has helped to control and reverse your lupus. Keep doing it." And I was like, oh my goodness. So I couldn't scream because I didn't want to scare the poor man. But when I got in my car, I just screamed and I shouted and called my family. And I was like, "You're not going to believe this. Lupus is in remission. I don't have to take medication anymore." He took me off of my medicine 2 months later in January because he wanted to monitor my numbers and see how I was doing. 3 months later, it was still in remission, and he took me off my meds. I couldn't believe it. And it was all because of that small shift that I made with my lifestyle. I cleaned up my diet and I made exercising a priority for me. What I started out having as a goal for a bikini, just being honest, ended up being a lifestyle change that impacted my entire life. It changed my life. And it was an act of God, because it's amazing how you think you have your own ideas of what you should be doing or what your path should be, and he has something different planned for you all along. So my goal in all of my working out was to be on the cover of this magazine, the Memphis Health and Fitness magazine. And I was like, I'm going to lose 15 pounds and I'm going to be on the cover for the month of May to talk about lupus awareness. And I did get on the cover, but I had a different story to tell. And my story wasn't my vain story about losing 15 pounds and being fine and fit with lupus. God's story for me to tell was how taking care of my health, taking care of my diet and my nutrition, exercising, helped me to overcome lupus and to be able to share that story to others. We can beat lupus. Lupus does not have to take us out. We can control lupus. We don't have to be bedridden every day for the rest of our lives. Our paths will be different, but we can beat it. And don't compare yourself to me. Don't compare yourself to anybody else. You do what you can do and you listen to your body, because that's what I did. And I had no idea where I was headed, but this is where God landed me. And so I share my story, not to brag, not to boast, but to encourage others. Don't ever focus on what someone else's path is. Focus on yours. Do what you can do to improve your health, and don't beat yourself up if you can't do it. I haven't exercised all week. I transitioned to a new job on Monday, and I'm a little overwhelmed right now with work. I did nothing this week, and I work from home, and it's still stressful, but I have to listen to my body. And when my body tells me, Tori, you need to sit down, I sit down. When my body says, Tori, you may need a cupcake today, I don't beat myself up for eating a cupcake today. There was a period when I was so afraid that the lupus would come back that I wasn't doing anything, and I was really abusing myself mentally. And I had to stop that, because I know that God is in control. And if he healed me, and if he cleared my medical record, cleared this and helped me to get to a point to where I can live and be healthy, I know one cupcake is not going to take me back to that place. But I share my story to encourage others, to reach out to each other and keep each other motivated. Find you a workout buddy. Find you someone that can motivate you, but don't abuse each other. If you don't feel well, you have lupus and you have a right to sit down on that couch when you don't feel well. Create your own path, track your journey, and then share your story with someone else, because you never know how much of a motivation you can be to others. I never imagined that what I've experienced would motivate others to take care of themselves and to exercise and eat better, and then share those same tips and tools with other family members who suffer from other diseases that can be overcome by a simple shift in your diet. So thank you, Tracy, for allowing me to join today's call. I do hope that this message was helpful to someone on the call. And if you have any questions, I'm open now to answer them.
Tori, thank you so very much. And just to pick up on one of the things that you said, we've talked a lot today about healthy living with lupus and nutrition and mindfulness and all of these things. And the most important message that we want to get to you through this is, yes, there are things that you do to improve your daily living with lupus, but the most impactful thing that you can do a lot of the time is to forgive yourself for
Yes.
whatever it is that you're not doing. Because when you don't forgive yourself and don't give yourself that reset, fresh start, then it causes stress. And
Yeah.
there's no amount of mindful breathing and, carrot eating that will help that. Now, I will say a cupcake might help.
Yes.
But you've really got to just give yourself a break.
Mhm.
Lupus is hard. Nothing else needs to be any harder than that. So, give yourself some grace, some leeway,
Mhm.
offer, give yourself a mulligan, and just let yourself feel like, you know, today wasn't a great day. I did not work out. I did not blah blah blah.
Mhm.
Tomorrow's a fresh start.
Absolutely.
Who's got some questions from Tori? And I dropped her magazine article in the chat box, and I'm also sending that out in the follow-up email. Tori, do you want to talk a little bit about some of the fitness things that you started out on? We did a poll early that see if I can find it again, where we asked about exercise. And we've got 20% of our respondents exercise regularly, 52% do, but not as much as they'd like. At 12% no, but they'd like to start, and another 16% no. And I asked if they would like to take part in an exercise support group for lupus patients, which is something you and I have been talking about for a long time. And 68% said yes. 12% said, no, I don't want to, but I will if you offer it. And then another 20% said no. And we realized that some of you have conditions that may preclude you from doing a lot of strenuous exercise. But I want you to understand that when we talk about exercise, that's not necessarily CrossFit or running.
Right. So
Just lifting your arms and breathing. Any kind of movement is exercise, and any kind of movement is better than no movement. As long as
Tracy,
yes,
I wanted to share my workout room with the group. I purchased a bike, a stationary bike. And this is probably one of the best investments I've made during this pandemic, because I can go at my own pace. It's good for my joints and it's good for my heart. I have a few weights. So if you can get some light weights just to do some arm exercises, if you want to walk, I've turned into like a gym rat almost, but I just still wanted to show some of the equipment that I have. My jump rope is my favorite because I went back to like childhood activities that I enjoyed. And the summer months downtown have been the greatest for me. So I ride a bike outside. And it's better for me sometimes than running because running puts a lot of pressure on my knees. Cycling does not. Walking and jump rope and riding my bike are my favorite forms of cardio. Um, Walking is an easy start, and it's also mentally recharging because it gives you an opportunity to just get reset and think about, focus on whatever you want to focus on and take your mind away from the stressors of life. But I've encouraged people to go back to what made you happy when you were at the happiest place of your life. And for me, it was childhood. And I remember I was always competitive with jumping rope, and I would participate in the American Heart Association Jump Rope for Heart competition. And so about 2 years ago, I started back jumping rope again, right here in my own living room. And I just pick it up and I'll jump. I'll do 50 jumps at a time and then put it down and go do something else and then come back and jump again. But if you check your heart rate when you're jumping rope, you'll be amazed at how much energy you're burning just by doing that. But it's going to make you feel good about yourself. I started skating this past summer during the pandemic because I couldn't really go around other people. So I live downtown in downtown Memphis, and I would go down on Beale Street Landing, take my skates and just skate around. Now, I don't encourage anybody else to go do that if you haven't skated in 20 or 30 years, but you want to practice a little bit before you go back out there. It was fun. And now things are so technical, they have indoor skates and outdoor skates, but do something that makes you feel good. Don't punish yourself. Don't start out trying to lift 30, 40 pounds and you can't do it. Get some 5-pound weights. And there are so many resources on the internet. There are so many resources on social media. There are trainers who have gyms who put workout routines out on the internet for you because gyms really suffered during this pandemic. So they were looking to reach people in different ways. And the internet, social media, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, there are different workout groups that you can join on those pages. I do encourage you to start light. Lifting weights is always frowned upon, especially for women, but lifting weights is actually good for your heart also. I do lift weights. I don't lift heavy weights. I don't lift anything over 30 pounds, and 30 pounds is really on my good day. But for my upper arm exercises, I do between 12 to 15 pound weights. But I started at 5 pounds, and I'm not trying to be the next Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'm just trying to live. And so, I've studied. I am actually studying to become a personal trainer right now, but because of work, I have not been able to complete the certification exam. But start light, start slow, and do things that you enjoy. That will make it so much easier to do. Jumping, like I said, jumping rope and riding a bike are my favorites. But just think about things that you enjoy doing, and then bike riding, if you have a family, is something that the entire family can do together. If you're in Memphis, you can get on the Green Line. The kids can get on their bikes and you can all bike together. The same with walking and the same with skating. If you have a family, it is a challenge sometimes, especially for working moms, to find the time to dedicate to exercising. And so anytime you can make it a family event, the easier it is for you.
You've got, let's see, a question from, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. From Daphne, are you completely off medications?
Completely. I've been off of my medication since January of 2017. Yes.
Fantastic.
Yes. And I feel great.
That is fantastic. So I'm envisioning you with your jump roping, just doing all kinds of amazing tricks.
Oh, yeah. I can do the crisscross.
Yeah.
I can jump backwards.
yeah, going back to the old days in the schoolyard, we were some pretty pro level jump ropers, weren't we?
Now you talk about getting a workout group for the lupus organization. I would love to see a group of us getting on our jump ropes and on a Zoom call and just jumping.
Wouldn't that be
That would be so fun.
fantastic?
That really
I,
would.
you know what? I bet that I could even get some purple jump ropes that we send out to everyone who registers.
You should. That would be awesome.
Anyway, can you talk a little bit? I know that from having eaten with you a couple of times, I know that you're really focused on healthy eating. Can you talk a little bit about that? As we've been with a dietitian today, but just kind of follow up some of your things that you do to make sure you're eating healthy.
Sure. I try to plan my meals for the week on Sundays. Well, I plan them on Saturdays and I prepare them on Sunday. And for me, having the food already prepared helps. Number one, with timing, but it also helps to cut back on eating things that I should not eat. So for me, I know that there are certain cuts of red meat that my body does not like. And I've, for the most part, removed red meat, but I've found some cuts of ground beef that I can eat that don't irritate my stomach as terribly. So I'm happy about that. Miss Laura's beef is a brand that I purchased at Kroger, and the meat is like 96% lean, 98% lean. So the leaner the beef, the less irritable it is for my stomach. But I eat lean meat, turkey, fish, chicken, and that's pretty much it. But I love beef, and so that was the challenge for me. But there was some cuts that I just had to remove altogether. But my meals look like for breakfast, I really don't eat meat for breakfast, because the turkey bacon for me is so salty. It's saltier than pork bacon. So I just rather not have it. But for breakfast, I'll have maybe eggs and oatmeal, or eggs and grits and some fruit. For lunch, I'll have a lean meat, green vegetable, and a healthy carb. I love potatoes. I love white potatoes and I love white rice, but my trainer will tell me to stay away from white rice and white potatoes, but I have not completely removed them from my diet. I just don't eat them every single day like I could. But I could eat, I always think about the question, what is the one food that you just could not do without? And for me, it's potatoes, because you can fix them so many different ways. But I do limit the white starches because they turn into sugars. And I limit my sugar intake. So one thing I am proud about, I haven't had a soda in almost 2 years. And when I tell you, I love Sprite, like I had to have Sprite. And then I went from drinking Sprite to Coke Zeros. And I became addicted to Coke Zeros. Like I had to have them every day, all day. And I started buying little small mini cans. And I would drink 2 of them at a time. So it wasn't helping me to purchase the mini ones. And so 2 years ago, well, what years is 2021? So 2020, for my New Year's resolution, I said, I'm not going to drink any sodas for the month of January. And then 2020 was just such a interesting year. I forgot that I wasn't drinking, and I looked up and it was June and I hadn't had a soda. So I was like, I can keep doing this. But yeah, so I don't drink sodas. I drink water. I do drink Crystal Light. I'll add Crystal Light mixes to my drinks if I have I have a urge for something other than water. But I'll have my lean meat, green vegetables, and a carb, and the same for dinner. I drink protein shakes in between for when I'm working out. And for desserts, I love ice cream, but ice cream doesn't love me. So I sometimes make like homemade sorbets. I'll buy the bags of frozen fruit and the flavored coconut water. And then I'll make like a sorbet or a sherbet and freeze it and eat that. And then I've found some vegan ice creams, some dairy-free ice creams that aren't as painful for me to take in. But I've loosened the restrictions some. I'm not as restrictive as I was when I was going to see my trainer every day.
Mhm.
I found a balance that I can live with and still remain healthy. Popcorn is my favorite snack, and I cook it on the stove. So I do the stovetop popcorn. I don't do the microwave bags.
Mhm.
And my best investment in the kitchen has been the air fryer. Oh my.
Well, funny that you should mention that, because as I told the folks earlier, we're going to have some drawings for people who complete the evaluation, and one of the things is an instant pot. The other thing is an air fryer.
They are the greatest.
They really are.
They are. I make soup in the Instant Pot for my mom because I cook for her on Sundays too. And the Instant Pot is just awesome. And I have like 3 air fryers because I have my meat
Yeah.
in one. I can't put anything behind fish in the air fryer. So I have an air
It's
fryer.
hard, yeah.
Oh gosh.
You have your
I have one.
dedicated fish fryer. I got you.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's
I
awesome.
got you.
And
Yeah,
there's so
it's
many.
really one of the things that for those of you who don't have them, you put your food in and you walk away. So especially if you're trying to do meal prep for a week, or you're really busy trying to, do other things, and since most of us are working from home, you can go stick whatever in. I made a pot roast the other night in the Instant Pot. It takes it a while to come up to pressure. So then it had to cook for 40 minutes, and then it had to release pressure for 15 minutes. So I had about an hour that I could continue working, and I didn't have to check on it. So it's really nice to have things like that.
It is.
What would you say is, I mean, would you say that potatoes are your comfort food that you seek out?
Potatoes and popcorn.
Popcorn, okay. And one of the things that I've heard dietitians talk a lot about is sometimes healthy eating when you have a chronic illness is really just rewiring what your concept of a comfort food is. Because when you find out that you're going to have to add a different medication or something like that, a trip to Gus's Fried Chicken and then a cupcake is kind of what we gravitate to, unless we make an effort to be mindful about eating and rewire it so that maybe your comfort food is an orange, a fresh sliced orange, or something like that. I mean, you have to really feel like that it's something that is a treat to you. One of the things that I always focus on is just making my plate as beautiful as it can be with lots of different colored vegetables and foods. So even if it's not as delicious as a cupcake with sprinkles, I might have some of that rainbow on there.
So
let's see, we've got some chat questions on here. Are we behind? Oh,
no, I was checking them out. We were talking about the air fryer product.
You don't want it because that would give you 2 4 air fryers and 2 Instant Pots. You probably do. Okay, and we got salmon, so that's good. Anything else that you want to share with the group, and then we'll take just a quick little break before Alicia jumps in.
I do have a recommendation for anyone who's looking to get into. I'm trying to get the glare out from behind me because I moved because my phone was about to die. But one good suggestion for anyone who's looking to start meal prepping for you and your family, buying the frozen vegetables in the bag, the steamable bags, if you don't have an air fryer, even if you do, but the steamable bags, and buying the frozen chicken breast with no seasonings. Don't get the ones that are pre-seasoned and pre-cooked because they're full of sodium. But just the plain chicken in the bag. If you can go to Sam's Club, get a bag of chicken breast, get a bag of broccoli and a bag of maybe cauliflower rice. That can be your lunch for the week. And then maybe switch up and get another vegetable and another starch, and then just kind of mix it up. Because when I fix my meals, I don't put chicken, green beans, and rice on every single plate. I'll put chicken on 3, fish on 3, and then I'll take the green beans, and I just kind of mix it up. And so each day is like a surprise. I don't know what I'm going to pull out of the fridge. And my brother can make a pan of chicken breast, a pan of broccoli, and a pan of sweet potatoes, and he can eat that for lunch and dinner for 7 days straight. I would just
Men are
go hide,
weird.
really, really weird. And he's like, "What? What's wrong with that?" And I'm like, "There's no way I could do that. Not for lunch and dinner." I would start skipping meals because I'm sick of eating the dry chicken breast. But buying it like that makes it really simple. And then you'll be finished cooking within an hour and you'll have all of your meals prepared. And then one thing I make myself do before I can go out and treat myself to some Mexican food or some tacos on Thursday, I have to make sure I've eaten what I cooked because I don't like to waste food. And my grandmother would not let us throw food away when we were growing up. And so I'm of the mindset that if it's cooked, it's in the house, I have to eat it. And I can't go treat myself for tacos or guacamole until I've eaten those
Okay.
meals. And another thing, I don't cook for Sunday through Saturday at one time, especially since I'm working from home now. I'll do Sunday through Wednesday and then Wednesday through Saturday because the meat kind of dries out and it makes it not tasty after about 3 days. And you don't want to eat meat that's been sitting up for 7 days.
No.